after the forecheck presents itself. His line mates have already taken off. Jankowski loses the puck, but watch how Jackson Blake gets to the front. Knows that Markstrom's got to get off that post a little bit. He never once looks to the far side. He's banking that Markstrom is going to pull off that short side, and he just sifts it towards the short side post, finds a little bit of daylight.
Hi, everyone. It's the Canes Corner podcast. I'm Adam Gold. Night 3 of our little get-togethers as we get you ready for the start of the preseason schedule, which comes Monday at Lenovo Center against the Tampa Bay Lightning. And a reminder, training camp begins in the morning, 9 o'clock at Lenovo Center, and I will be on hand. Who knows what we'll do coming out of that, but we'll be here tomorrow night anyway. We'll pick a topic and we'll go through it. Maybe we'll talk about what we saw from day one of training camp, but every night, 10 o'clock, right here on YouTube, your appetite whetted for the start of the preseason. 6 games starting with Monday's tilt against the Tampa Bay Lightning. We are brought to you by the Aluminum Company of North Carolina. If it is for the exterior of your home, you can find it right there at the Aluminum Company of North Carolina, aluminumcompany.com. For all of your home exterior, exterior home improvement needs. I am not in preseason form. I would not pass the Aluminum Company fitness test right now. All right, so the title of this is Who Could Be This Year's, air quotes, Jackson Blake? Because it's obviously not going to be Jackson Blake, since Jackson Blake was last year's Jackson Blake. So that is going to be what we will discuss here over the next 15 or so minutes, 20 minutes. And then we'll let you, I don't know, go about whatever you do on a Wednesday night. But let me get to a couple of news items real quick, and then we will we'll delve into the topic. The first news item, and these are left over from the last couple of nights. There is still some chatter about Kirill Kaprizov and the Carolina Hurricanes. And again, none of these things, as far as I can tell, and as far as I have been able to flesh out, none of these are based in any, I've heard the Hurricanes are this about Kaprizov. Everything that we have heard is based on, well, the Canes need this because they went after that 2 years in a row, Gensel, Rantanen, and they've got these prospects, draft picks, blah, although this year they don't have draft picks. And therefore, it's a perfect scenario for the Hurricanes to go in and get Kirill Kaprizov, a player like Kirill Kaprizov. And I said this today on the radio, and I'll just reiterate it here. Would the Hurricanes like Kaprizov? Who wouldn't? I mean, he is a machine. He's an offensive juggernaut. One of the most electrifying, exciting, fun players to watch in the entire league. And he would make Carolina better. No doubt about it. But we keep talking about what Carolina needs. And yes, they need a goal scorer, and he would solve problems. We talked about it yesterday about goaltending, right? About goaltending is not what's holding Carolina back. Not in the playoffs. Not even in the regulars. Goaltending certainly has not held Carolina back. I don't think I have to point out that Antti Ranta and Frederik Andersen in year 1 of that tandem won the Jennings Trophy as the best goaltending tandem in the league. Goaltending hasn't been Carolina's problem. It's been getting the goals. And certainly Kirill Kaprizov would have something to say about remedying that problem. But ultimately, he's not a center, and I don't think the Hurricanes are really that interested in bringing another winger, even though it would almost certainly come at the expense of a winger or two that they've got. And I also don't think that they are willing to pay somebody down the road $16, $17, $18 million annually that doesn't play the middle of the ice. That's my point. But again, we don't really have to get into the Kaprizov thing. It's fun, and I wouldn't be against having him in a Hurricanes uniform. The other thing that we keep getting, and we talked about it the first night, Monday night, we talked about the 5 players who were found not guilty. I'm going to talk about that very quickly in a second. Who were found not guilty of the sexual assault of EM in 2018. Because now it's there's like a push for Carter Hart and the Hurricanes. And we talked about this on Monday. All things being level, normal, no charges, no bad actors involved. And I'm sorry, all of the 5 players in this case, to varying degrees, are bad actors. All things being equal, the Hurricanes would have great interest in Carter Hart, great interest in Michael McLeod, the former Devil, based on the positions they play, goalie, center. My understanding is that the Hurricanes were interested in Hart, not maybe so much in McLeod, but that the interest was not reciprocated. And it's not that nobody has interest in, it's not about the Canes. My understanding was that Hart wanted to go west. He's a Western Canada kid, but that he wanted to go west, and it looks like maybe the favorite to land him is Utah. And McLeod, I was told, more than likely going to Ottawa. Again, I don't know what's going to happen here, and we won't know anything until October 1st, because that's the first time really that contact can start being made, although I'd be surprised if we didn't hear if there wasn't contact being made now. But they can't sign until October 15th. So my guess is, this is my understanding, is that neither player is coming to Carolina, and everything that we're reading online is simply, it is what it is. It's the internet. And again, nobody in the organization will say anything. It's being misconstrued that I don't have sources within the organization. I do, but it doesn't matter, because right now they are not talking at all about these players. The information I am getting is from outside the organization, and this is where I can say this is what I've been told, that Hart interested in going west, and it looks like McLeod more likely Ottawa, for what it's worth. And again, if you as a fan are happy that the organization won't be connected to these players, great. Then you get what you want, and we don't have to deal with a very, very uncomfortable subject, because it would be an uncomfortable subject. This is not Tony D'Angelo coming here based on, theoretically, because I think most of the stuff about Tony was way overblown, and a lot of it, frankly, not true. But this is not about interpersonal communications with a teammate or a coach. I mean, we are talking about a sexual assault that happened, and for the person on Twitter who said, why not? He was proven innocent. I think we all need to understand the difference between proven innocent and found not guilty or acquitted. Because if you've done any reading about this case at all, you would not say proven innocent. These 5 players, they behaved reprehensibly. In my opinion, it was criminal behavior. But criminal behavior isn't always convicted behavior, especially when it comes to sexual matters. And we're smart enough to understand that. Now, let's leave that issue in the rearview mirror. So who is this year's Jackson Blake, if any? And again, we will find out a little bit more tomorrow. I believe all the youngins will be in the second practice group. All the vets, save for a handful of the professional tryout folk, all the vets are in the first group. I think that's the C1 group, and then all the young guys are in the C2 group. So that's where you're going to see if there is a Jackson Blake. That's what we're going to find out. And by the way, Jackson Blake wasn't even the first Jackson Blake. Do you remember the first Jackson Blake? I'll leave it out here for the chat. Okay, let me ask the question: who is the first surprise player to make the roster out of training camp? Who was the first surprise to make the roster? Let's see if y'all can figure that one out. All right, so let me get to the particulars. And I know how many people want the answer to be Bradley Nadeau. And by the way, Nadeau seemed to have grown an inch and gained 12 pounds. He's now 5'11", 172. It's pretty good. Not even kidding. That's an improvement over last year when I believe he was 160 pounds. Shouts to our friend Ryan Henkel, Hockey News, for coming up with new heights and weights. Ruslan Kazayev, the goalie, is now 6'6". It's a giant. Anyway, Nadeau, who scored 32 goals, had 58 points in his for the season with the Chicago Wolves yesterday in 64 games. Wasn't minus 20. Still has the lethal shot, and was, according to Matt Soma, who covers prospects, Carolina's best player in the prospect tournament. And it's awesome to hear that Nadeau continues his push. So he is somebody that Carolina thinks very highly of. He is one of the better prospects in the league. He's not one of those. I think if you looked at the prospect tiers, he's not somebody that is like potential all-star or somebody like that, but he is definitely somebody who can make an impact in your roster down the road. And who knows? Starting Monday, I don't know how many preseason games he's going to get. My guess is 3 or 4 for sure. Maybe he will make that kind of elite. And we remember going back last year, Jackson Blake was not expected to be a player that was going to make the roster. Hurricanes had a full complement of NHL players on their roster. They did. They were top to bottom. They had a full boat. And Jackson Blake kept opening eyes in training camp. I don't think he had a ton of points. It was just every single time he stepped on the ice, you noticed him in a shift. And I would say about Bradley Nadeau, more important than he score a couple of goals in the preseason, way more important than that, would be, do you make an impact shift to shift? Because that's how Jackson Blake made the team. He didn't make the team by scoring goals or dishing off assists. He made the team because every single time he took a shift on the ice, you knew where 53 was. You knew it because he was making his presence known. And I remember talking to Rod Brindamore after the last preseason game. Actually, it might have been the 5th. I'm not sure he played the last one, but the last one he played. And it was at Lenovo. And I remember sitting there watching and going, and Blake wasn't very good offensively in the game, that last game. But he was impactful defensively. And I thought, man, this is exactly what the head coach needed to see. 100%. This is what Rod was looking for. All right, what happens on nights the offense is not there? And Blake, I think, opened the head coach's eyes. I think they were open already, but he was looking for confirmation that he could trust Blake with a role in the lineup. And not only did Jackson Blake force his way into the team, but he forced his way onto the ice. And it became apparent 2, 3, 4 weeks into the season that, we have to figure out how to get him more ice time. By the end of the season, Jackson Blake was held out of the last 2 games because the Hurricanes couldn't afford to be without him. That's the way that season progressed. And is there another guy like that? Let's see if we can get the last guy. Jarvie, no. Jarvis did open, did I say, I think I said the first player who would qualify here. Jarvis was on the team, but wasn't playing initially when Jarvis did make the team. They didn't want to send him back to junior because that was the year after the pandemic, and there was no point. He had dominated it. He couldn't go to the AHL because he was too young, and they didn't want to send him back to junior. So ultimately, Seth Jarvis waited around for Nino Niederreiter to get hurt, and then he got on the ice. Craig Adams, Gump going way back. Hey, Craig Adams' name is on the Stanley Cup. Let's see. Yes, Matthew with the correct answer. Warren Fogle. I remember when Warren Fogle made the team, and I talked to Rod about it, and he said, the guy plays like a Hurricane. Now, the funny thing is that if you go back, I didn't remember this. Fogle, his numbers from year 1, woefully small. 10 goals, 5 assists, 15 points, played 77 games. But you could tell that Fogle played a way that Carolina wanted to play. He was high energy. He was a big body. Wouldn't we like to have? He just, ultimately, he was somewhat limited. But, Fogle was an effective player for Carolina. Remember how he annoyed the Capitals in that first playoff series? They thought he was a dirty player. I just figured he was just not all that sharp in terms of hockey IQ. He was kind of gangly. He was kind of deer in headlights, but, he's 6'4", 215, good skater. Had a little bit of finish too, but anyway, so yeah, Warren Fogle was the guy. He was the first one who went, I'm making a team. And Jackson Blake did it last year. So all the good things we've heard about, or we know about Nadeau, scored at Maine, big time scorer for the Wolves in the AHL against grown men. So it's not like he can't play. The American Hockey League is probably the second best hockey league in the world. And he did very well. So my guess is, though, no matter what happens here, he goes back, but you never know. And I've said this before, and I think I've done it on the radio, and we'll do it right here. Because I believe that the other candidate is a better candidate to be this year's Jackson Blake. Somebody who plays a certain way during training camp and forces his way, if not onto the roster, into or to the top of the list to come up at first glance, and that is right shot defenseman Charles Alexis Legault. 6'4", 215, he's got some offense, physical game, smart player, had a very good prospect tournament. National champion at Quinnipiac, played with Rod's son, Skyler, there. Also, former Hurricane, Yanni Peretz. I think he's a former Hurricane, right? Anyway, I think if there is a player who has the best chance of opening eyes, it's him. You just never know where the next solid, doesn't have to be great, solid NHL defenseman is coming from. I'll go back to, and I want to read something in a couple of seconds here. I'll go back to when Brett Pesce showed up. Nobody thought Brett Pesce was going to be that. What we saw on a daily basis, we didn't think Brett Pesce was going to be that. But we thought Brett Pesce would be a solid player. And I think that there is some similarity. I mean, if Charles Alexis Legault became 2/3 of Brett Pesce, we'd be, pinching ourselves. But he's solid, he's big, he's physical, he's right-handed. The Hurricanes have 7 defensemen on their roster. 5 of them play on the left side of the ice. By necessity, somebody is going to emerge who is a right-shot defenseman that gives them another option, and I think it's him. Does that mean he's going to make the team at a training camp? More than likely, no. But if we're looking for another Jackson Blake, I think that's your guy. That's what I think. But I've been wrong before. All right, now I want to bring this up from our friend Sarah Sivian, who will, by the way, join us on the program Monday on the radio show on Monday. She wrote a piece for Bleacher Report about. She did a Q&A with Brett Pesce, and Sarah, like me, like maybe some of you, a bit of a romantic, right? I got a soft spot. I love the relationship side of what we do, covering this team. And I've gotten to know Brett very well, and I'll relate a quick personal story about him in a sec. So, question for Pesce: you and Rod Brindamore shared a pretty genuine moment in the handshake line at the end of your playoff round. What has he meant to you throughout your career? This is Pesce's answer to that question. Rod means more than I can put into words, to be honest. He's a lifelong friend. He's one of those guys. Obviously, I don't talk to him throughout the year, but when I see him, it's like nothing's changed. I kind of grew up with him, even my first few years in the NHL when he was an assistant. It was cool to see him change that organization around. Being a part of that was special. He set a standard and taught me how to be a pro. The bar is the Stanley Cup, and that's it. He showed us how hard we needed to work, and even have a chance to compete for the cup. He's one of the best coaches around and a great friend. I've talked to Rod about that handshake. I have spoken at great length about that handshake, that embrace. And I talked to Jacob Slavin about it at the end of the season. Talked to Jordan Stahl about it at the end of the season. Brett Pesce will, no matter how many years he plays for the Devils or wherever else he plays, Brett Pesce will be forever a Hurricane. And when I close my eyes and I think about the 24-25 season and all the cool things that we saw, the Martin Necas touching the sun for the first 2 months of the season, to Jackson Blake's emergence, to more Seth Jarvis wizardry masterclass stuff, both ends of the rink, what he did in Four Nations, what Jacob Slavin did in Four Nations, the run to the conference finals again. I close my eyes and all I can see is Brindamore and Pesce embracing in the handshake line. And when that game was over and Pesce was, while broken because he was hurt, the only thing that kept the Devils really viable in that series. He was that good. When the series was over, I sent Brett a text and I said, it was an absolute privilege to watch you work for 5 games. And I wished him a great offseason, blah, blah, blah. 10 minutes later, after I sent that, 10 minutes later, I got pinged back. And what Brett said is, it basically said, thank you. miss you guys. Go get the chip, is basically what he said. We'd had Brady Shea come back. I've seen a lot of the guys who left who eventually come back. And Pesce's just special. He's a special guy. He was a special Hurricane. And it's a shame that the timing wasn't good enough for Pesce to still be here. Because ultimately the Hurricanes couldn't re-sign Shea and Pesce and some of the other players they had to let go. And it's too bad. But boy, was he something else. And a super, super human being. All right, final thing before we go. Martin Necas and the Colorado Avalanche are going to struggle to come up with a contract. Don't be surprised if Necas is moved at the deadline. I have no idea if Carolina is going to be interested in Necas. It has nothing to do with that. Martin Necas is going to be a trade chip, more than likely, unless he is willing to accept a little bit below market value to stay in Colorado. I don't know if he will or not. I really don't know. I love Marty. I wish I was still in touch with him, but I'm not. He's such a good dude, but I have no idea where his head's at in terms of a contract, but I expect him to be on the move. All right, that'll do it for us. Oh, man, training camp tomorrow. I'm very excited. We will check in again tomorrow night at 10 o'clock here on the Canes Corner podcast. I am Adam Gold, brought to you by the Aluminum Company of North Carolina. If it is for the exterior of your home, you can find it at the Aluminum Company of North Carolina. Sammy Hanner's crew do a great job. Check them out for all of your exterior home improvement needs. And until tomorrow night at 10 o'clock, I am Adam Gold. We will see you later.